The A-10 Thunderbolt II aircraft is nearing the end of its operational lifespan. The United States Air Force plans to retire 56 A-10 aircraft during fiscal year 2025, representing approximately 20% of the remaining inventory. This reduction will decrease the number of A-10s in active service to around 200. Concurrently, the U.S. Air Force has announced its intention to retire the final Warthogs stationed in South Korea. These aircraft will be replaced by F-16 Fighting Falcons. The individual with the most years of service before 2030 will be the last to retire. With the exception of a policy reversal or the emergence of a new conflict where the A-10 Warthog's capabilities could be advantageous, the A-10 appears poised to complete its withdrawal from active service by approximately 2027 to 2029. The precise year of the final retirement of the A-10 fleet remains uncertain, but based on the retirements scheduled for the 2023 to 2025 period, it is anticipated that the last A-10s will retire sometime before 2030. In 2023, the United States Air Force retired 21 A-10 Thunderbolt II aircraft, marking the commencement of an accelerated retirement process. In the subsequent years, approximately 100 A-10s are scheduled for retirement, with 49 units expected to be retired in 2024 and 56 units in 2025. For several years, Washington had resisted the Pentagon's efforts to retire its A-10 fleet, but it appears to have fully relented in this regard. Notably, while Washington opposed the Pentagon's request to retire F-22 Raptor Block 20s and F-15E Strike Eagles in 2023, it did not intervene in the retirement of the A-10s. Retirement may not necessarily signify the conclusion of one's life. Another nation could manage them. Even if all Warthogs are retired before the end of the decade, that does not necessarily imply an immediate end. In April 2024, Simple Flying reported on a potential buyer for the A-10. However, the identity of this country has remained undisclosed. Furthermore, there has been no official update on the mystery buyer. Air Force Secretary Frank Kendall said, "One country at least has expressed some interest, but the problem is once that aircraft goes out of the U.S. inventory, there won't be any base support for it. So any country that picks it up and tries to sustain it would have a very hard time. It's also a very old aircraft, about 45 years old. Replacement parts are very hard to find." In April 2024, Air Force Secretary Frank Kendall indicated that Ukraine's interest in the A-10 Thunderbolt II was limited due to its perceived lack of survivability in the current threat environment. However, in July 2024, the United States Senate directed the Pentagon to conduct an investigation into the potential acquisition of A-10s by Jordan. Despite the absence of any subsequent updates, it is plausible that Jordan may be the enigmatic buyer. In the boneyard, even after the retirement of the A-10 Warthogs, there exists a remote possibility that the Air Force may reintroduce them into service in the future. Many of these aircraft will be stored at the Davis-Monthan Air Force Base's boneyard for several years before being disposed of. This scenario allows for the potential return of the Warthogs into service should circumstances warrant it. It is also uncertain whether these aircraft could be utilized for target or experimental purposes, similar to the F-16s as QF-16 full-scale targets and as part of the VENOM program. The A-10C Thunderbolt II, affectionately known as the Warthog, was the inaugural United States Air Force aircraft meticulously designed for close air support of ground forces. Its enduring popularity among ground forces is undeniable. While opinions may vary on its relevance or obsolescence in future conflicts, it is universally acknowledged for possessing the most formidable cannon among any U.S. fighter jet. However, with the advent of the F-35A, the question arises whether the F-35A can effectively assume the Warthog's close air support role. the United States Air Force's specialized close air support aircraft. Although the A-10 Warthog demonstrated its effectiveness in Afghanistan, Iraq, and other regions, these environments were relatively permissive. Despite their imminent retirement, the A-10 Thunderbolt II remains a significant component of the United States Air Force's arsenal. In fiscal year 2025, an additional 56 Warthogs are scheduled for retirement, with the remaining approximately 200 aircraft to be progressively phased out by the late 2020s. While the Air Force is divesting its Warthogs, it is crucial to recognize that their absence is not permanent, at least not for the foreseeable future. Retired Warthogs will be stored at the Boneyard at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base in Arizona. This storage will enable the Air Force to reactivate the Warthogs should the need arise, such as in a protracted low-intensity conflict with a permissive airspace environment. Stuck in yesterday, the National Interest recently published an article with a sensational headline titled, "The A-10 Warthog Retirement is a Nightmare for the U.S. Military." The article asserted that the A-10 is the sole combat-proven attack aircraft and is highly esteemed by ground troops for its exceptional capability to inflict significant damage upon fortified enemy positions. Subsequently, the text states that the heavily armed and armored A-10 demonstrated its capability as a tank buster in the Gulf in 1991. The truly remarkable number of Iraqi tanks and other armored vehicles destroyed by the A-10, typically cited as 900 tanks and 2,000 military vehicles, is subject to debate. Furthermore, there are inquiries regarding whether the A-10 utilized its rotary cannon or its missiles in the destruction of the armor. Regardless, the long-retired F-111 Aardvark demonstrated the capability to neutralize early 1990s Iraqi armor in a relatively favorable environment, suggesting that this capability was not exclusive to the Warthog. In response to the A-10, the Soviet Union developed the Su-25 Frogfoot, another ground support aircraft. Both Ukraine and Russia have extensively utilized this aircraft. However, it remains uncertain whether any evidence has surfaced indicating the Su-25's capability to penetrate the armor on either side. The F-35A, a next-generation successor. The national interest criticism of the F-35A's primary replacement, the A-10, is arguably unfounded. The article states, "The F-35, which, despite being marketed as a viable replacement for close air support missions, has yet to substantiate its effectiveness." As an anecdote, in 2018, Afghan allies requested air support on a cloudy day. Unfortunately, the A-10 aircraft, which is typically designed for clear skies, was unable to operate in those weather conditions. However, the Marines promptly dispatched an F-35B. F-35s possess exceptional visual acuity and can operate seamlessly through clouds. The Afghan general, who later recounted the incident, remarked that he was completely unaware of the aircraft's approach. Furthermore, Israel recently employed its F-35 Adirs, or F-35As, in a significant airstrike against Iran, resulting in the purported destruction of all Iran's Russian-supplied S-300SAMs without sustaining any losses in a single night. Although this operation did not involve close air support, it underscores the exceptional lethality of the F-35. The F-35's cannon is a secondary or tertiary weapon system. If the primary focus is on the A-10's cannon, it is accurate to state that the F-35 pales in comparison. However, it is important to note that cannons are designed for conventional warfare, which is no longer the predominant mode of conflict. The Gulf War occurred over 3 centuries ago and holds no relevance in considering a future scenario involving China or another peer-on-peer adversary. Several modern jets, such as the Chinese J-20, are entirely devoid of cannons. The F-35B and F-35C variants also lack cannons and require the external Terma multi-mission pod to carry the 25mm GAU-8 4-barrel rotary cannon. Notably, the Air Force has only recently achieved success in equipping the F-35A with the AU-22/A 4-barrel rotary cannon, which was initially incapable of firing accurately and effectively. This milestone was accomplished in 2024. F-16 Fighting Falcons rotated in. In the intricate realm of the real world, it is erroneous to assert that the F-35A stands alone as the sole replacement for the venerable A-10. This replacement will not be a direct one-to-one substitution. For instance, the Air Force has recently made the decision to retire its remaining A-10 aircraft stationed in South Korea by January 2025. These aircraft will be succeeded by F-16s that have undergone upgrades to possess fifth-generation capabilities. Furthermore, the integration of various drones, both basic and advanced, along with other systems, is anticipated to assume some of the close air support and anti-armor functions previously performed by the A-10.